Okay, okay, guys. So welcome to the ninth session of developing iOS apps with Swift. Last time we had gotten to the point where we can already see a list of characters that are coming from the official Marvel database API, and we have it here. But of course, this is lacking a bit of style and personality. So this is where we have to start providing exactly the experience we want to provide because we already have the access to the data. Now it's a matter of refining exactly what we have to offer. So in this case, we're going to improve this list a little bit. There's a few things we have to do here. For example, we would like to show maybe a thumbnail of the character, maybe style it a little bit. And what we have to do is be able to see the full list because as far as you can see, if we scroll down, there's a limit. We're only targeting a very limited group of characters from the API. And that's because by default, the API is selecting a first few in order not to deliver everything at once because the database is gigantic. So let's focus on making this a little bit stylish first. Uh, First of all, as you guys can see around here, we are delivering um, what is the cell? Okay, we are delivering a very default table view cell. Um, and maybe we want to provide a little bit more customized so that we can introduce the concept of the thumbnail. So in order to make this happen, what we are going to do is create a custom cell. In order to make that happen, we need to create a new file. And we can say we want to create a Cocoa Touch class. By saying this, we can say we want to create something that inherits from UI table view cell, which is exactly the type we're using, but now we're going to create a child class. In this case, we're going to call it character class, character cell, sorry, because that's going to be a cell for each of the characters. Pick the place where we want to put it, and this is it. All right, so we already have the basic structure of what cell is. But now we want to say exactly what that cell is about, what it's going to have, and how it's going to be laid out. So first of all, what we can do is, okay, let's remove these comments. It's actually this cannot be needed at all. And then we're going to say this cell is going to have two main things. It's going to have an image view for the thumbnail and a label for the name of the character. So we're going to say we have a private thumbnail image view. It's going to be of type UI image view. Each image view is basically the way we present images on UIKit. And that now we're going to initialize it automatically by using a closure that automatically results. And here we're going to create and compose what this image view is about. So let's create the image view. Let's black on. And we are going to say this is going to have a content mode so that the image inside accommodates to our based on our rules. So we're going to say the content mode going to be scale aspect width, that it fills the square where we're going to put our image. I have a big lag here, sorry about that. Can you feel the lag as well?
I'm just feeling your video a little bit lagged, but
Okay, actually, I'm going to disable the video then, so that maybe that will improve. Okay. All right. Now we're going to specify another property of the image view that will make sure the image never goes off the boundaries of the image view. So that's called lips to bounds. And we're going to say it's true so that it clips the image whenever it tries to go off the boundaries of the image view. And we're also maybe going to set a corner radius so that it looks nice in order to make it.
Hello?
Yeah, looks like
Hello?
we lost Sergio.
Not again. Okay, let's give him a few minutes. Okay. Hey,
Hello?
Sergio. Hey,
Hey
Sergio.
guys. Oh, sorry, something happened with the connection again. Is it recording yet? I don't know.
Yeah, it's still recording.
Is it? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect. Okay, let's continue then. Up to what point do you hear me, guys?
Uh, I don't remember. You were still building the settings for the image view.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So yeah, I was saying I'm going to set another property that will allow us to manually set the constraints of the auto layout instead of having it be set automatically for us. In order to make this happen, we are going to say this is false so that it doesn't translate automatically to constraint whatever size and position properties it has from the beginning. So that's very important to set here because we're going to provide the manual constraints there. And then we're going to return this image view, which is exactly what this cluster is going to resolve, and then deliver the instance and store it in this thumbnail image view. And this is it. We already have the thumbnail. We just have to add it and position it correctly within the set. But first, we need to create a label where we're going to set the title, the name of the character. So this is going to be way simpler because it's just a simple label. We're going to say we have a name label.
Sergio, you're not sharing the screen. I'm
Oh,
not
I'm
able
not
to see
sure.
it.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. Second real quick. Can you see that?
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. So you can see the code, right?
Yes.
Yes, now we can see it.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, this is the property I was talking about before, so that we disable the constraints to be set automatically. So we say it's false. And now we are just creating a new label for the name, so we can set the name of the character on the set. So the same way, we're going to use a cluster that resolves automatically. And the only thing we're going to do here is literally just return a single UI label. The reason why we do this here is because we may want to customize this later. And actually, I can think of a thing that we want to automatically configure. So in this case, we can just create the label here, return it. Then we can set the exact same property, translate auto-advertising match into constraints false. So that again, the same way we did with the image view, with this label, we're going to manually set the constraints instead of them having it generated automatically for us. So that's it. We already have the two things we need on the layout of the cell, the thumbnail and the name of the character. And now what we're going to do is lay everything out. So what we can do is use the initializer so that whenever the cell is created in the first place, we lay out everything. So what we are going to do is override the init that takes style of the cell, and then we are going to call the proper initializer of this so that we can pass in the original properties, the original parameters that we are getting from this initializer. And from this point, we can do whatever we want with it. We can lay everything out, we can configure everything so that our cell looks the way we want it to look. So the first thing we're going to do is use the content view of the cell to add the two UI elements that we create. That way, they're actually going to be present on the UI. So we're going to add the thumbnail, and we're going to replicate this for the name label. All right. Another thing I forgot to configure for the label was the font. So actually, we're going to set it here. We're going to say it's maybe a bold text font of 20 points. And we can continue with the configure of the properties of the initial cell. In order to make this look the way we want it to look, because we are just adding two elements, but we are not exactly saying how they are going to be positioned in the cell, we can use the same auto layout functionality that we did last time for the table view. We can use the ns layout constraint to activate. And so we're going to do it. Ns layout constraint dot activate. And this is going to take an array of a bunch of constraints. Remember, the constraints are just rules of how things are laid out in the UI. So we are going to start with a thumbnail. We can say the leading anchor, which is the left side of it, is going to be constrained to be equal to the leading of the actual content view, which is the parent where everything is being laid out. And we're going to say this has a constant of 16, so that it has some padding. Let me disable this real quick. Okay, and now we are going to set the top. And we're going to say it's going to match the top anchor of the content view as well. And we're going to say it has a 8 margin at the top. Now we're going to say same thing happens with the bottom. Needs to match bottom with some padding, of course. Frame. And this is going to be negative because we want it to go in the opposite direction. Okay. And now we're going to say it's going to have a width so that it knows where to end when it comes to the actual horizontal position it's going to be using. So we are going to say it has a width anchor that is going to be constrained to a constant so that it's always the same value. And we're going to say is maybe an 80. That's it, we already have all the rules that we need to set for the thumbnail to look the right way on that cell. Now we need to do the exact same thing with the name label. So let's do that. We want the leading anchor to be positioned against the trailing anchor of our thumbnail. So say this matches the thumbnail trailing anchor. And we're going to provide the margin of 10. We're also going to say it has a trailing anchor so that it matches the trailing of the content view of the parent. So we're going to say this matches content view of trailing anchor. And we're going to say has maybe an 8 or 5 against the parent. And finally, we are going to say it's going to match the top of the thumbnail so that they're both positioned in the same against the same top line. So we're going to say name label anchor is constrained to the thumbnail image view of anchor. And since we want them to be aligned, completely aligned, the constant is going to be 0. And this is it. We already have all the constraints so that we teach all these elements how they're going to be laid out on the UI. So this is it. Oh, I need an mandatory initial detected coder. We can just emit a failure error because we're never going to use this initializer. And all right. And then basically we have the initializer that is going to set the initial layout of this cell, but we're never actually teaching it what it's going to look like for each of the cells. And that's because, first of all, we're not even using it here. We're still using the very default cell. So that's what we are going to change now. So the first thing we need to do is make sure to register this character cell so that the table view knows this cell type exists. So what we are going to do to make this happen is go to the place where we are setting everything up. So right now we're setting the data source of the table view and it translates to false, which is perfect. But now we want to be able to register our new cell type. So in order to make this happen, we just invoke the cell and say we want to register something. For some reason, this doesn't provide the corresponding signature, but what we want to do is say, okay, I do have a character cell type, and I want to register it so that I can use it with this reuse identifier. So this reuse identifier is very important because for performance sake, this is what is going to tell us that we want to be able to reuse the same UI element instead of having to create over and over cells while we scroll down or up. So what we are going to do is use this reuse identifier so that the system can reuse the cells that we have already laid out and basically recycle those cells so that we can just reconfigure them with different content instead of having it to create over and over again. So this is extremely important. We need to register the cell so that it can reuse the cell over and over across the functionality of the table view. And that way we can just go ahead and use it here. In order to use it, what we need to do is instead of create it here, we can leverage a method from the table view. In this case, we have access to this table view parameter here. So we can use it. And then we can say we want to dequeue a reusable cell with a certain identifier. So we can use this exact same identifier. We may want to create a constant for this. So we're going to take it to the original cell and make it static. And that's it. We can reuse this reuse identifier of this cell here. And we can also use it here. And for the index path, of course, this is talking about the index path we're currently iterating on the table view. And finally, we're going to cast it so that it's a character's name. Of course, this is going to fail now because this character cell doesn't have a text label or anything now. So we have different properties. So what we want to do is provide a configure method that's going to take character. It's going to be able to configure every single time the cell with the information from this character. So that's the first thing we're going to make happen. So the first thing we want to do is set the name label text to match the character.name. And that's it. At this point, we are just setting the name, but then the thumbnail is still empty. So we want to provide a way to install the image of the image view. So we have a thumbnail image view, and we can set an image, but we need an instance of an image. But right now, what we do have is a thumbnail.url. So we need to be able to convert this URL into actual content that can be translated into an actual image that we can present on the user interface. So in order to make this happen, we need to provide a way to be able to fetch this image. So that's what we are going to do now. We're going to create a function that will allow us to load image data. And then we need to think this through. How exactly we want this load image function to look like. So the signature may have a URL that we need to grab the content from. And we need a completion handler so that we can get this content delivered back to us. So we want the completion. There's going to be an escaping closure because we were going to escape it into another URL session layer in the implementation. And this is going to deliver the image view that we need. That may be optional because maybe it failed and it didn't get anything. All right. And that's it. We already have the signature that we need in order to be able to use it here. So we're going to use it first, and then we're going to transition to the actual implementation. So first things first, we need to understand that we actually have an URL. So in order to make this happen, we can use a conditional binding, conditional wrapping, sorry. We can say we have a thumbnail URL that is coming from the character.thumbnail.url. And then we're going to load the image using our function. We're going to say we want to load the image from this thumbnail URL, and that we are getting it from the completion handler so that we have the image here. And then what we're going to do is, since this is actually likely coming from a background thread that is handling the operation of downloading the image, we need to go back to the UI thread. The way we do this, same way we did last session, is to use the dispatch queue dot main instance, which is going to be a singleton that we can always access to go back to our UI thread. And we are going to call an async operation here that's going to be executed on that main thread. So in this case, what we want to do here is basically set the image that we just got onto the image view where we want to set it, which in this case is a thumbnail image view dot image, and we're going to install it here. All right. We need a self. So we're going to take a factor list of self here so that it can remember what self looks like. And we're going to interact with self here. All right. But there's another thing we're not considering here, and is the fact that we need to lay everything out. We need to understand that something happened, and we need to let it know that it needs to re-render something. So we're going to provide a completion handler here so that whenever we call configure, we can know from outside that actually the operation finished, because this is actually becoming asynchronous. So we are going to say that we have a escaping closure here, so that whenever we call configure, we need to provide what is going to happen on this when this completes. And we're going to call completion here. So that you can see, guys, what is going to happen here. First of all, we're going to say we have the cell, and we're going to configure it because that's the method we're working on right now. We're going to pass in the character that we just iterated from. And now we're going to say something needs to happen here. And that is basically, we need to say, we need to reset, re-render something. We need to let the table view that something has actually changed. So the way we do this is basically saying layout, sorry, set needs layout. Where is this? I just forgot the method that we need to call. Let me take my notes. Set needs layout. What is happening? Oh, because we need to call it on search. Sorry about that. Yeah. So we're basically saying we need to say that this needs to be re-rendered because something actually happens. So this completion handler is going to be called here, so that whenever the image view is downloaded and is installed, we are going to say, okay, this needs to be re-rendered automatically. That's why we're calling the completion handler here. And we are just calling set needs layout to let the user interface know that the layout needs to happen. All right, so we are very happy with this at this point, but the problem is load image is doing literally nothing. So this is where we need to come in and do the proper implementation of the load image. So the load image is actually something very simple. We need to basically, again, use a URL session, the share object, so that we can call a data task that's going to take care of downloading the content. So we're going to say we are using the URL that we are passing through here. And then the completion handler is going to provide data that we need with the content of the image, the response, and a potential error. So first thing we're going to ask is, do we have data? So we're going to do a guard where we say, okay, I'm expecting data to be something, otherwise do something else. And this would mean I'm going to complete with nil because we have no data whatsoever. That's why UI image is optional, and so that we deliver a nil. All right, but we don't need data, we need an image. So how do we translate this to an image? So we can just say, I also need this data to be translatable to an image that's going to be coming from certain data. And that's it, we already have the instance of this image. If this fails, it's going to complete with nil. Okay, nil is just equivalent of null. I'm sure you have already figured that out, but I think I haven't mentioned that before. Okay, and now I'm going to complete with the image. Why? Because we already verified it's actually something and it's going to be translated from the image. Oh, I just forgot to return here because guards always need to terminate. And this is it. This is all load image does. So at this point, the only thing we need to do is be able to start this operation. So we call resume on the task that this data task is returning. And that's it. We are loading the image. Loading the image means just downloading the data and transforming it into an image, completed with it, return back to us. The image is going to be back on the UI thread. We're going to install it on the image view, and we're going to re-render the cell so that it knows that something happened. So going back to this table view, let's see if something is missing here. So we do have a way to configure, so that configure sets the name, it sets the image. And I think that's it. I don't think we're missing anything. Let me take my notes. Okay, I'll just start here. Yeah, actually, there's something that we're missing. So at this point, we have no way of setting the cell height. So we need to provide a mechanism for that. In order to make this happen, what we can do is provide another method that takes the height. But this is actually coming from a delegate. So when we are configuring the table view, we are just setting the data source, but not a delegate for that table view. So we're going to say this character table view has a delegate that is self. And we need to say that character list controller is also going to be a delegate for that table view. And this is where we can implement a method that can deliver the height for every single cell. So here it is. We're going to return 150 could be. And we're going to also provide an estimate on the original table view configuration, that it knows what our custom cell height is going to be like. All right, we already do have that. And that's it. We are doing everything we need. Let's run and see if maybe we missed something. That's it. All right, well, here we have it. We have the right height, we have the right title, we have it in bold the same way we expected it to be. But then the image is not being set. So let's try to figure out exactly what happened. First of all, let's debug this real quick to see if we are getting an actual image. Where is the cell? Yeah. Okay. App transport security has blocked clear text HTTP connection. Okay, so this is what this means is, unfortunately, our URL is not HTTPS, so it's not really meant to be secure. So we need to provide a policy on our, let's call it a manifest, so that we can say our app is actually enabled to use unsecured URLs. So what we can do here is go to the info and add the corresponding property. I have it around, so let me look for it. All right, I'm going to edit it as a source code. And I'm going to add it here. So this is the policy that allows us to interact with HTTP, not HTTPS URLs. Okay. Let's run again. And here we have it. We already have a more proper looking list of characters with a nice title and a nice thumbnail, so that we know who they're talking about. We may note some, like Alan Warlock, for example. And of course, well, next time what we need to do is be able to see a list of more items, because as we scroll down, we can see more. So we want to provide pagination features for this list. So this is it for today, guys. I know we already we already passed our limited time. So please let me know if you have any questions so far.
No, nothing so far.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Okay, thank you so much, and see you in the next session. Bye, guys.
Bye, see ya.